Just arriving at Builders Paradise. Brand new mirror bypass doors. Sizes include 4 feet, 5 feet, and 6 feet. Oh, and don't forget to check out their Saturday yard sale for even better discounts. Builders Paradise, where your island dreams begin.
Good evening to our listening audience, near and far, but especially our peoples in St. Kitts and Nevis. Those will be listening to us on the World Wide Web, and of course throughout the Caribbean Basin. Upon hearing my voice for the first, as the first on the wicket, it tells you our great host, Everett Weber Herbert, is not in this evening. He's, of course, in New York, and I hope he would give a big shout out or even go to WLIB New York as a broadcaster. Let them know that he is the heavy broadcaster throughout the Caribbean. And WLIB, of course, is one of the powerhouses in terms of broadcasting in the New York area. So I would implore him to make his presence there as he is in the Big Apple. This evening, of course, is the Let's Talk show, which most of you look forward to every Tuesday night, for us to disseminate information in a truthful manner for the guidance of not only ourselves, but also for our nation, the region, and indeed the world. Because we will bring to the fore this evening the dramatization in Britain with Brexit, and of course in Washington with Donald Trump. But before we get further afield with reference to international issues, we will try and tackle some that are near and dear to us. And thus, I will try and make the introduction of our panelists. The Honorable Spencer Brand, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Stanley, and good evening to my fellow panelists around the table.
And good evening, Ted Hobson.
Good evening, Mr. Stanley, and good evening to all the people who are listening to this program tonight. Mr. Stanley, I'm always very intrigued when you take over the helm at Vaughan Radio. You've always done a good job, and I'm looking forward to a good discussion tonight.
Very well. So I will lead it back to the Honorable Spencer Brand for his proper introduction. I just didn't want it to sound as if nobody else is here as a result. I just decided to bring in the heavyweight Ted Hobson. Good evening again, Honorable Spencer Brand.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stanley. I thought you were bullying me googly. But Mr. Stanley, I believe that our hearts tonight are a bit heavy. I want to use this opportunity to offer my heartfelt and sincere condolences to our fellow panelist, Mr. Nair, Conrad Nair Liebert, on the loss of his son, and certainly to his mom, Angela, to the entire family. I also want to say to all those families who are in mourning tonight that I hope that they can remember their loved one with fond memory. It therefore means that Nevis would have started as it regards to the Federation with the first murder. And while we continue to impress upon our people to choose a different path, I believe that regardless, this often causes tremendous pain in our people's heart. Just want to say to Naya, we are here. We are remembering him. We are remembering his family, and I believe that in general our community is feeling a bit down tonight. And I hope that while we reflect on these kind of occurrences, we can find ourselves to be drawn closer to our Creator. I believe that while we ponder on these incidences and occurrences, it gives us the opportunity at times to reflect on our own sense of frailty, on our own sense of what we are, that we are here for a time and then we... And I believe that as we reflect, we want to say to all those persons who may be engaging in these kind of activities to cease and desist. I believe that it only cause severe harm on our communities, it only cause severe harm on our families, structure, and the good name and the reputation of our beautiful, peaceful and tranquil island. I believe, Mr. Stanley, that tonight you have put a number of topics on the table, Brexit and the shutdown of the US government, partial. I think last week a statement was made that elections have consequences. And when we look at what is happening in Great Britain and in the United States, in England, for example, there is this talk about another referendum. Will that ever happen? We will wait and see. And this impasse between the president and the apparent might of the Senate. Will there be some, what I call, statesmen and stateswomen to broker this impasse so that it can create this sense of stability in the world, because both of these events are creating tremendous instability throughout the world. And I believe that while we ponder on these things, Mr. Stanley, that right here in our own federation, I think it was just today, there was this news item about the consideration of the legalization of marijuana. So all around us, we have major issues grappling with. And as a people, as a society, as individuals also, we have our own individual issues that we are trying to confront. But I've always believed, Mr. Stanley, that there is indeed a greater power than we are. And at some point, we would have to allow that greater power to intervene and intercede.
Very well. Ted Hobson.
Yes, Mr. Stanley, I too would like to record my sincere condolence to our colleague, Naya. I mean, I've known Naya from since he was a youngster. And, of course, his father was a good friend of mine. His father, both father and mother. And, you know, these situations always have, you know, the sort of painful effect when you see your own son gone down and, of course, pass away like this. Every January, the beginning of the year, I keep hoping that we wouldn't have any murders for the year. But very, very quickly, that kind of hope vanishes, because here we are with our first one. And this is not the first time that Nevis has recorded this, the first in the Federation. And so, to me, well, Mr. Stanley, it's an unfortunate situation. I don't know the answer. I mean, the government has tried very, very hard. They have brought in help. They have increased salaries for police officers. They have done everything they could, but yet we have these youngsters who are hell-bent on violence and taking one another's lives. I'm hoping for the day when some sort of revival, I don't know where it is going to come from, but that our youngsters would understand that they are all from the same island, they are all same race, all of us are black people in this country. We grew up together. Why is it that we have this kind of hatred that you could just wipe out somebody without even blinking? And so, Mr. Stanley, it's a very sad day that we have started off the year with this situation. As I said, I feel for Naya, and I feel probably more for the mother because she has had the responsibility of almost most of the responsibility of bringing up this young lad. So, you know, we have to pray that our country, our island will, for some reason or the other, in some way or the other, have some sort of revival and some sort of change of heart. Insofar as the Brexit concern, you know, England is like my second home. I went to England when I was just after I left school and spent my wonderful years there, and of course I studied in England and so forth. And it pains me to see the kind of frustration, the kind of deadlock that exists in the country today. All of the energies, all of the resources of the country seem to be, certainly the mental resources of the country are centered on one big mistake. And that mistake was the referendum some years ago when they decided to leave the European Union. I can't see a way out because you have the Brexiteers who are determined that the referendum must be respected. You have those who remainers who feel that we should still remain with the EU. And in between you have those who are trying to work out some sensible solution, but it does appear that that sensible solution has not got the consensus of the bulk of the members of Parliament. So we will see how that turns out. But I could assure you that England is going to find a way out, and they have been a source and a country of stability in Europe, and I think they will find some solution to this. I don't know what the solution is, but hopefully they will find a solution.
Thank you very much. We will take a break, and we'll come back with our two panelists.
City St. Kitts. Keep it sweet. Keep listening to Vaughn.
Just arriving at Builders Paradise. Brand new mirror bypass doors. Sizes include 4 feet, 5 feet, and 6 feet. Oh, and don't forget to check out their Saturday yard sale for even better discounts. Builders Paradise, where your island dreams begin.
Well, I will attempt to introduce this idea or thought, and we will be back with that opinion that Ted has always honed in on. It's a thought process, and through that process, one might conclude whatever idea he has in his head, and let's bring to the fore the idea of Brexit. And that thought process might be verbal or written, but may not be factually, may or may not be factually correct, and consequently, there might be consequences. Where the thought process or processes came from with reference to Brexit. Boris Johnson and David Cameron were schoolmates, and it was like a rivalry. Boris Johnson seemingly did not see the pathway to the prime ministership of Britain, and as a consequence may have honed in on the idea. Whose idea it was with reference to Brexit, I can't tell you. But it was like an opinion that was not well thought out. And it's like an ill-fated ship. And we are now suffering the consequences. That opinion, again, where it came from, I cannot tell you as to whether or not it was Boris Johnson's thought processes and ultimately idea or opinion. And now they have gone down the route of they had a referendum, and they did not spell it out to the common people, who are obviously in the majority. As a result, those who were supposed to have guided the ship into safe waters, ultimately safe harbor, failed miserably. As a result, Cameron had to resign, or he resigned. Turned over the ship to Theresa May, and she's struggling because to keep Britain on even keel as one of the nations of the world in its past that was feared and respected on every ocean and seas of the world, but it's on its way down. And this foolish idea of Brexit, I've said it here through the mic of Vaughan Radio, that it was just a foolish idea. And now they have found themselves in a quagmire, in quicksand, and they cannot get out of it. How do you work your way out of it? It's like an impossible task. But like I said, it was an idea, an opinion, which was not well thought out. And as a consequence, the British people, and not only the British people, it has consequences globally. Trump, of course, fanned the flames of Brexit. He too should never have gotten to the helm where he commands the ship of state of the United States of America as the most powerful man in the world, piloting the most powerful nation in the world. But yet, he doesn't have the aptitude to do the job that is required to keep the ship on even keel. I mean, he made many, many blunders. North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. He wants to take the United States out of NATO. There is a big meeting in Davos. He has decided he's not going. And maybe as a result, other world leaders who felt that he should be there decided they're not going to come. And the world depends on economic progress and decisions that are made in Davos by the world leaders. What do they call them? G7? Now maybe G8? But as a result, the big fellows are not going to be there. Good evening. On Let's Talk. Sorry, please call back. And as a result, we are faced with these kinds of leadership. Where are we going? Of course, the Bible must be fulfilled. And nations after nation, nation after nation, will crumble. It might take another 200 years before the United States eventually bent to its knees. China is coming up. Of course, China was head of the world maybe some 2,500 years ago. But it's on the rise again. But its GDP is still way below, far below that of the United States. But, like I said, it has the population, and if it, with good leadership, coupled with resources, it will continue to plow ahead. although its GDP has faltered in this year's last 12 months, but it's still way ahead of other countries. But what I'm saying to you is that we have leaders who would aspire. Good evening, you're on Let's Talk. Good evening. You're on Let's Talk.
Good evening, Mr. Good evening, Mr. Stanley. How are you doing?
We are hanging in. We're here.
Yeah. Also, good evening to Mr. Hudson and Mr. Brand. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'd like to say condolences to Naya on the loss of his son, to his family, coming from my family, and I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate Everett Weber Howard on his recent award. That if I should take some words from the Governor General, which says somebody was watching him, and they made him a spotlight. That's very good, and only the best will do.
Right,
Stanley,
right.
Stanley, if you want to move too, you could let Weber show you, or you dance your shoes off.
Are you there? Are you at the function now?
I know. What happened is that it was on the weekend, but
Sunday.
there was
Right,
supposed to be
it was
some
Sunday.
nasty weather. There was supposed to be some nasty weather, and I didn't want to chance it to go up there to get stuck in all the weather, But somebody told me that boy Weber dance off his shoes.
Well, that's very, very good. It's nice to hear that. But there are times when there are challenges and you must face the challenge. I could remember when...
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, and those words from the Governor General should not be thrown aside at all.
Yep.
And Weber has taken them on for himself. All right, man, I listen out here.
Well, thanks for the call.
You're welcome.
And I must say again, congratulations to Weber. Of course, Nivigans are good at many things. And of course, dancing is one of the greatest pleasures of young men like Weber. I hope that he would be able not only to be seen by people in the Federation, but some of the beautiful women who were there who might have seen his fancy footwork with reference to dancing.
Well, Mr. Stanley, I didn't see. I was looking at YouTube. I didn't see his
Dancing move.
his dancing, but I saw him in his tuxedo, and really stood out. And I was very, very proud of him. You know that, as I said to him the other day, I see we have lots of function in Nevis, and I never see you attending these functions. But he made us a hit there.
Tell hold your fire. Good evening, you're on Let's Talk. Good evening, you're on Let's Talk.
Good afternoon, Stanley.
Yes, good evening.
Sympathy to my cousin Naya and family. And I must tell you, Weber was here, but they were asking for Stanley too.
You wanted both?
Wonderful.
In New York, I mean, you guys have a combination. Okay? Weber and Stanley. Weber was here, but they were asking for Stanley as well.
Ted started with us too, you know. So next time, Ted started with us too. So next time they ask for the three of us.
Stanley's in the future. But the function, in spite of the threat of the weather, the function came off very, very nice. The attendance was there.
Happy to hear that.
And it was a bus function. And again, in New York, I can tell you everybody come together when it's a Nevis affair, regardless of the politics. Everyone will be there for the support because we all know whatever happens is for to help with the hospital, the schools, or something in Nevis. So people did turn out and support. And again, in no small size, Weber brought out the crowd because we listen to him on a weekly basis, and people came out to honor him, as well as the magistrate, El Comido Willett, magistrate Miss
Yasmin Clark.
Miss Yasmin Clark, and our own
Chief
Sir
Justice.
Dennis Byron,
Byron.
Chief Justice Dennis Byron. So the crowd was there. The Nibijans were there. They all turned out and showed their respect and celebrated with the honorees. So again, guys, keep up the good work there. You keep us informed. So I should just keep you informed with whatever little I know here in New York. And keep up the good work. Mr. Brand, Mr. Stanley, and everyone there at Vaughan, and Miss Bartlett.
Yes.
And right, so you guys have a good year, and we'll just keep on listening all over the world.
Thank you for the comments.
Because we depend on you to give us the news from Nevis as well as all over the world. And Mr. Stanley, I don't know. Well, Weber is a good guy. He was here, so I think I don't know if he met with Trump to
To advise him.
Give him some advice.
to give him some advice, and then maybe he's on his way to England. I don't know because I hear him tonight. So we might look. We Nibijans, we're small, but we're Talawa.
Yeah.
Alexander Hamilton, right?
Yeah.
He's on everybody $10 bill up here.
Yeah.
We have Cicely Tyson. Okay, we have Motley Baker. Quite a number of big names, and now we have Weber.
Yeah.
So, what can I say, guys? I've been listening in.
Okay.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks for the call, Admiral Sadio. And always stay tuned and always call in and give us that big up.
Yeah, and I'm almost sure, Mr. Stanley, that he had something to do with selecting the honorees. And if he did, I think all three honorees were worthy of their selection.
Absolutely.
And I'm particularly moved by the fact that our boss here, our Webo, was selected to represent us here at One Radio.
I think the caller said something that is very instructive, actually. He said that in New York, when there is something for Nevis, people turn out. And there is a similar group in the Virgin Islands, NAPS, of that similar. Everything that they often does, it's for the benefit of the island of Nevis. Mm-hmm. And I believe that even though these Nevisians and the Kittitians who are overseas, they certainly still have their country at heart. They might be over there working to make a living, to fulfill their commitment, but oftentimes their hearts are very much right back home here on the island of Nevis. And that is good because it shows that even though that they may be off of Nevis physically, that their soul, so to speak, their heart is very much still here on the island of Nevis. And I'm very happy to hear that it was a very good turnout despite the threat of the weather. Mm-hmm. And Nevisians, if rainfall, they're not going anywhere. So
yeah.
I think that it goes to the love that they have for all of the honorees. When you think about the names, El Comido Willett, an icon in his own right, Magistrate Clark, and Byron, all of these are stalwart in the Nevisian psyche, the Nevisian makeup. So I don't believe that a bit of snow in New York would have kept Nivisions away from that. So I'm really happy to hear that they turned out, that they had a good time. And it brought me back to the similar group in the British Virgin Islands, as I said, NAPS. They have always done some marvelous things for the island and the people of Nevis. I want to say to them from the microphone of One Radio, thank you for continue to loving your country.
I think people ought to realize and probably be informed that the CCJ president, Sir Dennis Byron's father was born right here in Bath Village. So I think the link to that program was timely, because he is really basically a Nevisian. In fact, I remember when he was first qualified, he spent many years here with his uncle, Cecil Byron. And we used to knock horns together here as youngsters. And it's nice to know that they selected him to speak. I mean, he's world renowned. He's a member of the Privy Council and so forth. So, I mean, they had a very, very resourceful speaker for that evening.
Well, we know Nevisians, wherever they go, they bat well. They always put runs on the board. And as a result, when we speak of Sir Dennis Byron, there are others who would follow in his footsteps. I expect the Honorable Mark Brantley to follow in his footsteps. And a few of the youngsters who are coming out of sixth form, based on the academic aptitude, they will follow in the footsteps of some of the great people from Nevis and also from St. Kitts. So Dennis Byron, of course, has made his indelible mark on the world stage. And this is one of the reasons why I always try to say that anyone who comes out of our academic institutions and can get the opportunity to be on the world stage, on the big stage, must grab it with both hands. Life is short, but yet it can still be determined as being long in terms of from 25 to 65, that's 40 years, to build a career that would be exemplary. And there are Nevisians who have risen to the occasion. The three honorees, Elkamida Willett, Honorable Jasmine Clark, Her Honor Jasmine Clark, and our Honorable Everett Weber Herbert. And like I've said, in due course, there are other Nevisians who will follow in their footsteps.
For sure.
For me personally, I mean, I've been to the summit already. When I consider myself being among the great President Ronald Reagan and the great President George W. Bush, 41, Cap Weinberger, and so many others. I said, I have been to the summit. And for me, I'm not looking for any award. That was the icing on my particular cake. And based on the weather that came about on Sunday, I could remember very vividly. It was a church service at the Washington Cathedral. And I put on maybe about 4 T-shirts, 3 shirts, 2 jackets, and my winter coat, 4 pairs of socks, and while I was at the Washington Cathedral at the service, seeing all the highlights, it was 1 below, and I cursed the day I left my hotel room. But as Admiral Sadio said, people braved the weather,
Yes.
and eventually attended the ceremony. The great honor to have Weber there, and the honor, Her Honor, Jasmine Clark, and our great Elkamida Willett, those of us who believe in cricket. I mean, we were elated when we know this little dot, Nevis, struck a massive 6 to get El Comido Willet on the West Indies team. And there were more Nivisians who should have made the West Indies team.
Yep.
But they have never given us the credit that we deserve. But we fought, and we got some of it in terms of the great El Comido Willet. When I meet him, I said, great El Comido Willet. I mean, I have a photograph from 1983 of the independence of Nevis. I mean, St. Kitts Nevis. And who was in the background on that photograph? The great El Comido Willet. Of course, if he were to see it and recognize his youthfulness on that photograph, he would be elated. But again, I never held back. I always believe that Nivisians are a special people. And who knows? One world order, it's coming. I can't tell you it might be in the next century or two. But who knows? It might be a Nivisian. We'll be heading up as one world order. He may not have resided here all the time, but being born here, being an indigenous Nivisian, Alexander Hamilton, and also Dr. Everson Hull, I hope he is...
He was there. He was at the function.
And I hope he would lead Everett Weber Hubbard to Donald Trump into Washington, because he's got some Washington connection.
He was at the function.
You understand? So, in that regard, I wouldn't put it past Weber and Dr. Everson Hull and Dr. Eustace Huggins for them to give Weber...
Have a summit with the president.
Yes, quite so. Yes. So, we'll take a break and we'll be back.
From Queen City, Nevis, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, Vaughn Radio.
Just arriving at Builder's Paradise. Brand new mirror bypass doors. Sizes include 4 feet, 5 feet, and 6 feet. Oh, and don't forget to check out their Saturday yard sale for even better discounts. Builder's Paradise, where your island dreams begin.
Yes, we are back, and I'm delighted that the Honorable Spencer Brand broke the ice with regard to this bonanza. There is a company on the New York Stock Exchange and one, I think, on the NASDAQ, and they are now looking at big money. And I must take this opportunity to amplify the presence of the herb, and that our health minister, Wendy Phipps, would make a concerted effort to contact Eli Lilly, pharmaceutical company, Johnson & Johnson, Bayer, Pfizer. These are the companies that got plenty money. And Nevis, of course, has one of the best soils in the Caribbean to grow anything. It's been proven with sugarcane, tobacco, cotton, as the case might be. And thus, we have the best soil to grow the herb, not for casual pleasure, but for it to be sent on to world market, to bring back hard currency for the nation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And let us not wait until it's too late to get on the bandwagon, to reap that bountiful harvest. We've got a lot of land space. The 228 acres that we have earmarked or turned over to the National Bank for a certain amount of debt swap. Let us begin to calculate the enormous amount that we could derive from the cultivation of the herb for medical purposes. The information that is reaching my desk, that there are people in the nation who have the aptitude scientifically to extract from the herb the medical benefits for health reasons. And if we have people with the aptitude, scientists, who are able to get the right, what do you call them, strains, as the case might be, let our health minister, the Honorable Wendy Phipps, through the Prime Minister, which I heard, news reaching my desk, that he had some utterances into that direction, maybe following the Honorable Prime Minister of Antigua, Gaston Brown, and the Honorable Gonzalez of Grenada, is it?
St. Vincent.
St. Vincent and Grenadines. They are already on the bandwagon. Should we be the last? I say no. Let us put a team together and put the infrastructure in place to ensure that we can derive our fullest share of the economic benefits from the herb. We've got land space. We've got good weather. It's been proven with crops in the past that Nevis has been able to play its role, and played its role with reference to some of those crops I mentioned earlier. So why wait? We should not be the last to come to the dance. And like I've mentioned, the pharmaceutical companies, based on the information that is reaching my desk, have already earmarked a certain amount to invest in the industry for control. And I could tell you these are billion-dollar companies: Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Bayer, Eli Lilly. So what are we waiting for? Let's put the structure in place to ensure that it doesn't become a proliferated factor or commodity that would be on the streets of St. Kitts Nevis and that would cause us more harm than good. But if it is controlled, if it is done in Britain, like I've heard it on the news, there's a place in Britain, it's not publicly known, but they are doing massive cultivation to meet the demand on world market with reference to health reasons, to be sold to health practitioners for their patients. And if that is the case, why should we wait? Why should we wait? We need money to finance the education of our children, repair our roads, take care of our elderly, and the whole 9 yards. And as a result, if it's a commodity that can bring hard currency back to St. Kitts and Nevis, let us not drag our feet. Let us put the committee in place. Let them go find the companies that are willing to invest and see how we could be on that bandwagon where we can reap our share, our fullest share of that bountiful harvest. Ted, a comment from you. I know that you're not...
Well, I know, as you know, I'm totally opposed to what you're saying. I think that we are a very tiny island, very little landmass. Most of it is hills and gullies. And one of the reasons why we never have the problems that other countries had after slavery is that after slavery was abolished, all the white people left because the soil was so poor, and still is very poor. You know, you have St. Kitts with wonderful soil, and if you're talking about soil suitable for that kind of thing, then you should turn to St. Kitts, not Nevis. Nevis is a small island. Nearly all its land is taken up right now. So I don't know where you're going to find some pharmaceutical company coming here to dig up stones, because most of the land here is stony lands. It's not suitable for any kind of agriculture. Very little agriculture. So I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, you have St. Vincent, large landmass, Dominica, even more. And if people want to grow ganja, let them go in those islands. We have serious criminal problems here, and if you expose our young people to that kind of thing, you're going to have nothing but trouble in this country. And there is no benefit, no economic benefit to gain from growing ganja in Nevis. And that is my view.
Honorable Spencer Brown, your comment on it, please, and I'll follow up.
Mr. Stanley, this, in my mind, this is a topic that will occupy the minds of our people, one way or the other, which way we must go, or whether we must go, and my own sense on it, Mr. Stanley, is you spoke about cultivating this for the world market. And in an effort to generate revenue for the island of Nevis and for the island of St. Kitts. I often wonder if, as a small island, that we can cultivate enough of a particular item. It doesn't necessarily have to be marijuana. It can be any other food item that would be sufficient enough to really have an impact on the global stage. My sense is that if it is that we take a decision, say for example, we decided to go in the direction of legalizing it and cultivating it and so on. My sense is that the greater portion of that cultivation would be for local consumption. I am not convinced that we may be able to cultivate to the extent that we can really have a major impact exporting. We may be able to export close by regionally. But Mr. Stanley, you indicated earlier that Nevis would have produced some of the highest quality. I know in cotton we would have produced probably the highest quality of cotton globally. So that is, history would have shown that we were able to achieve that. Can we also achieve that with probably the highest quality of marijuana if we decide to go one way or the other? And these are the kind of things for me I would want to consider in having a discussion on this. I think you spoke about our soil, but my own sense is if we decide to cultivate on a large scale, if we decide to cultivate for export, whether or not we can have the kind of impact or we would be able to be competitive based on our size. And those are some of the questions that I would like to have answered, to discuss, and to get a sense as to we at some point we were able to be sufficient in onion production. I think at the moment we are sufficient in eggs, things like that. But you know, you produce to a certain level, and the level that you are producing at most of the time are basically for local consumption. So if we are to go to that level where we really want to have an impact, the question is, will we be able to produce to that level that we can say we want to export to a market
America
that can have the kind of impact that we really need to have? You know, Mr. Stanley, we had the same challenges with cotton, banana, sugar. These Caribbean islands did well for a time in cotton. They did well for a time in banana production. They did well for a time in sugar. And
had to abandon it.
Nevis and St. Kitts, the size of Nevis and St. Kitts is one estate of one company in South America. And these are the kind of things that I think that we can have a discussion on, whether or not. My sense is that if we are to go in that direction, whether we will be able to have the kind of impact as it relates to producing a particular quality that would be a quality that would be in high demand, because once everybody else may be producing it, the size of us may not allow us to have the kind of impact that we really want to have.
The information that is reaching my desk is that among us here on the panel, we don't have the technical expertise to understand the true nature of the growing, the producing, and ultimately the marketing. Is that a call coming in? It's true. Good evening. You're on Let's Talk. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Stanley.
Yes, good evening.
Concerning this marijuana thing down there, people have to be dreaming to think that you guys are going to cultivate marijuana down there to sell, to send out, ship out for medication or whatever it is. People don't. Most of the people, they're just thinking of going somewhere where they can smoke it down there. Because then, when you can't compete against America to begin with. Look at the CDI, right? The Citizen by Investment function you have here. America is competing. All of these programs they're putting in place to prevent St. Kitts and Nevis and the other Caribbean islands from, getting ahead. All the laws and everything else is simply because they are competing. The black listing of these islands is the same thing in the banking business. We had the sugar where they planted the beet and run everybody else out of the business. So it's just a smoke screen. Okay?
But dream.
You ain't gonna ship anything up here when they have all this land in America, land that you guys don't even can imagine. Okay? I haven't heard anybody down here saying that, well, okay, let's plant some more potatoes so we can import from America. I mean, these are things now that you can buy and sell down there.
Of course.
But to compete in that business where, for the medication or whatever it is that they're going to be doing, it's you have to ship it up here for them to make whatever they're going to make. So if they have their own up here, what are they going to buy from you? It's just very simple. All right, people want to do what they feel like down here. They're going to plant marijuana in the yard so they can smoke the marijuana.
Yeah.
Other than that, nothing else going to happen. Number one, you don't have enough land space down there to go and things that you talk about you're going to ship. Where the land is? Nevis is very, 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 very small. Okay? What we need to do is to try to get rid of the monkeys so people can plant food in the back of their yard or whatever land they have, so that they can keep from buying what America is sending down here to them. All right? That's my input concerning this. I mean, when we hear they don't want nobody from Iraq or other places to come to the Caribbean, and these are the same people who have the corner stores up here in New York City, when they are preventing them from coming down here, because they want their citizenship by investment to come to America instead of the Caribbean. They're in competition now, so they don't want to all get along. They want these islands down here to be dependent on them all the time. And these are the games that they play. So there's something to think about.
Thanks for your input. We'll take a break, and we'll have some comments on the flip side of the break.
With all the power from the tower, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, VON Radio, from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Yes, we are back. Now, I'm not with the advocacy of planting the herb on backyard gardens, as the case might be. That is not the case.
Where are you going to plant it?
Is there a call coming in? Yes. Good evening. You're on Let's Talk.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We don't want no marijuana.
Agree with you.
Yam, potato, and tanya.
Yeah, agree.
Amen. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Stanley.
The information that I have received. Good evening. You are on Let's Talk.
Hi, good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, Mr. Stanley. Good evening, Mr. Brown.
Good evening. Good evening.
Mr. Stanley, Mr. Brown, and Mr. Theodore Hafton. I don't know who else is on the panel, but I just tuned in when Mr. Hafton was speaking. This is the farmer Ellis Phillips speaking.
How are you?
Mr. Hafton, I just want you to know that there's three types of soil. There's loam soil, there's clay soil, and there's sandy soil.
We have clay.
Yes, three types of soil. Loam, clay, and sandy soil. It has been recorded in the history book that Nevis have the best soil anywhere in the Caribbean. We are mostly a loam soil. I don't want to get into your marijuana conversation, but I want to let you know that we have recorded over the history of farming in the island of Nevis. We have produced just about everything and anything from our soil. For you as a lawyer who doesn't know anything about farming, right, to come on national radio and say about we only have hills and valleys and we have the worst soil and you could go over to St. Kitts and plant whatever, I'm telling you, anything that is planted on the soil of Nevis have a different flavor, have a different taste, have a different texture to anything is planted in the Caribbean. And I'm speaking from experience. This is true farmer Ellis Phillips. Do you want to rebut that to me?
Yeah, I rebut it. I'd just like to say that if you read history, you would realize that after slavery was abolished, and this is written in history, that because of the soil in Nevis, the people had to all the white people left, and if you realize history, unlike on St. Kitts where a substantial amount of white people remain there, in Nevis, very few remain because the history says the soil was so poor that it was not economical to be able to carry on without slavery.
Okay. Can I interject?
I'm quite sure that in certain areas of Nevis you can you have good soil that you could get, even in the hills of Nevis where people used to grow their potatoes and so forth. Even during slavery you had good yields. But as a whole, you can't compare the soil in Nevis to the soil in St. Kitts.
Listen to me now. Note you said the white people left.
Yeah.
Look at what has been happening now. Those are the same white people that are coming back now to
but they're not coming to toil the soil.
Because what? Over the years, these lands have been fertile by the trees that have dropped their leaves and rottens into the ground that now make us one of the
people who are coming. People who are coming to Nevis now are coming here because of the beauty of the island. And the beauty and hospitality of the people of the country. And we have always been very hospitable. We have always been accommodating as a people. And this is our greatest asset.
Yes, but our greatest and our greatest downfall is that we have never been hospitable and polite to our own people who are now want to till the same soil.
I don't know because
Mr. Theodore, I'm telling you,
we are still importing a whole lot of produce here.
Why don't you guys and the government invest in bona fide farmers and invest in food security to feed the country? And then you'll see food and marijuana will go together and we all will live happily together. And I want to say to the nation, there are more people in the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis using marijuana than those who are smoking it. Alistair McIntyre Phillips says that. There are more people in the Federation using marijuana than those who are smoking it. Have a blessed night. I'll listen to you guys.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. It seems the caller has information that needs to be rested on the Honorable Spencer Brand's desk. So I would employ the caller to gather his information, have it properly cataloged, and ultimately, once it is properly organized in a meaningful way, I'm certain the Honorable Spencer Brand, with the influence he would have on the cabinet, they might be able to look at it in a more favorable way, and as a result, it might propel its way up to the chain of command. Because as Ted mentioned, that people would go it in the backyard, and the caller was saying that far more people. Is there a call coming in?
Yes.
Good evening. You're on Let's Talk. Good evening. You're on Let's Talk.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Stanley.
Yes, good evening.
I call him because I just want to agree with Mr. Hopkins. We know we're not ganja in a Nevis. We will never, ever produce enough marijuana to come on the scale in which all them other countries doing it. Everybody wants to plant marijuana, and Antigua all over will legalize marijuana. Which part we stand? You know, in my opinion, these fellas just want to block on them and smoke weed in people's face.
That's right.
Let me see legislation governing smoking in public places, and let me see it being enforced, and then we could talk about legalizing something else. Thank you.
Thanks for the call. Again, I do not want to sound as if I'm subscribing to the notion that I want to see marijuana flood this place and grown in the backyards of every household. Quite the opposite. I am saying that based on the information that has reached my desk, there are few people in the nation who are fully aware as to how the industry must go forward. And we must not subscribe to the notion that it must be grown on little plots in our backyard. That, of course, would be for those who are smoking it on the street corners or in their houses, as the case might be, for recreational purposes. That's not where I am. I am saying to you, because I have had, or because I have an association with Wall Street, the big companies that I've mentioned just a while ago, they are billion-dollar pharmaceutical companies, and they would know how to pilot their program with reference to scientists using proper technology, spending money on research and development, employing people at the highest academic level with reference to the production or cultivation and production of the medical aspect of it. And I'm telling you that currently those companies that I've mentioned, which be Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Bayer, Eli Lilly, and the other smaller pharmaceutical companies that are looking at it from an economic point of view, but they have the firepower, economic firepower, to put the strategy in place for the identification of the area, for the preparation of the soil, for the preparation of the lab or laboratories, and the personnel with the aptitude with reference to science, to produce the kinds of medical product that will be sent onto world markets. Once it is produced, not in terms of its bundles, as they have thrown them off the ships when they're trying to get them into our nation, but also to do the extraction, which ultimately would leave Nevis and St. Kitts in bottles, as the case might be, in a liquid form. And ultimately, that's where the big money is. The man on the street who smokes it, we don't want them to be smoking, because ultimately we know they can't take care of themselves. They would be dependent on our charitable institutions and our health facilities if we do not police it, control it, organize it, market it to the extent where it would bring the kind of foreign currency. Now, the rudimentary way of doing this, which we have known over the number of years, where people just grow some of it in the backyard plots, or when they think they are good enough at it for local consumption, they would head into the hills, into obscure areas where the police and the law enforcement officials have to hunt them down and ultimately bring them to the court and do whatever they have to do to more or less control them. But once it is done, based on what I'm saying regarding the pharmaceutical companies, which do have billions in assets, they would be able to put the structure in place to ensure that the small guy who smokes it on the street doesn't have access to it. And the small guy who blows it in the faces of people or smoke in public places would not be part of this structure. And if they, of course, have to go and do it, they could still put a structure in place where it would be prohibitive on their part, because you would have to, in fact, obtain a license. You would have to, in fact, have the land available. You have to document where you are growing, where your farm is, and all that. Local revenues would be derived from those who put the proper structure in place. And like I've said, you see anybody Boiling Hammond report anymore, or moonshine, or the local brew? No, because you got companies like maybe Mount Gay and the other rums that have put a lot of money behind it, set up their laboratories to the extent where the stuff is now legalized and it comes to you in a bottle. So fellas no longer have to go and have on Saturday evening set up their still, and by Sunday morning they got the brew ready to meet the local bars. It's not happening anymore. When I say it's not happening anymore, maybe one or two people might still do it just to maintain the skill and to have some little drink. They don't even know the proof. But what I'm saying to you, based on a proper structure put in place by the companies that I've just mentioned, it would be controlled, and ultimately it would be sent on to world markets in the packaging, just like how we get Jamaica rum, we get St. Croix Cruise and rum, we get rum from St. Kitts, and even there's a local distillery here now established. And when you look at the bottling, the labeling, and everything, it looks like it came from Britain, United States, or elsewhere. But it was produced right here in Nevis. So those who are not up to speed with reference to the organized way of setting up the laboratory, having good scientists to produce the product, the labeling, and ultimately the marketing. Let's put the right strategy in place. Control the growing as to where and how, and let us not be the last to get onto the bandwagon. Because it is very expensive to live in Nevis, and we have to be able to have hard currency to be able to afford the expense, government expense, in terms of running a government, and to meet the demands, the financial demands that civil servants and all the other ancillaries put on government with reference to the finance aspect of it. So those who are attempting to blow it asunder, because we may not have all the necessary technical expertise to put the package together, then we, of course, are going to criticize it in a negative way. So let's see if we could turn the weapon around. Or not the weapon, but let's see if we could turn the idea around and look at it from a positive point of view, and see if we could send again a team headed by our health federal minister and our local health minister to have a conversation with some of the companies that I've mentioned earlier, and those who will be tuning in just recently: Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Bayer, Eli Lilly. These are companies with plenty money, and they're not going to allow any fly-by-night little thing set up to challenge their dominance in this regard. And they know that there's plenty money, because there's a company in Canada that is already on the market. There are companies looking for land in Jamaica, in Brazil, and other places. Now, again, what I've heard, based on the information reaching my desk, there are a small group of scientists in St. Kitts Nevis that understand the technology and the application of the science to bring the right strands and to find the right soil texture, the right area, the right temperature in terms of...
Where's the scientist?
And as a result, the product can be produced in the form where it would be sent onto world market, not for the fellows who will be smoking it on our corners or in public places, but let's understand where we are, where we want to go, and how we must get there. Is it so far-fetched to know that Prime Minister Gaston Brown is on the bandwagon and said he would no longer have any charges brought against people who are in the trade, but rather to bring them into the fold and to get their expertise, technical expertise, applicable to bringing forth a product that can be beneficial, not only to themselves, but also to the nation. Prime Minister Gonzalez of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, he is also on the bandwagon. Why are these two prime ministers from all OECS region are already on the bandwagon for their country to produce it? Sure, they have a little more space than we have in St. Kitts and Nevis. Antigua is 108 square miles. St. Kitts and Nevis together, 68 and 36, 86, 40, that's 104. We are almost the same size as Antigua. St. Vincent and the Grenadines might be a little larger in terms of space than we are. But again, how are these two prime ministers already on the bandwagon and we are not?
Because they're looking political support among the young people, that's all.
Well, we are not going to take that route. We are not going to take that route.
That's why they're looking.
Mr. Stanley?
We want to take the route of talking, having a conversation with these companies that I told you, that I've mentioned. And they've got the economic firepower. I mean, I would just be a broken record now. And I'm certain that they will give us a listening ear. And I hope our Prime Minister is listening, because I heard that he may have made a little tweet into the conversation forward with reference to moving the goalpost from not here, but maybe somewhere here. I rest it. Let's take a break.
City St. Kitts. Keep it sweet. Keep listening to Vaughn.
Just arriving at Builder's Paradise. Brand new mirror bypass doors. Sizes include 4 feet, 5 feet, and 6 feet. Oh, and don't forget to check out their Saturday yard sale for even better discounts. Builder's Paradise, where your island dreams begin.
We are back, and let me go on record to say this. And I've never smoked it. I don't know about it. When I came back to Nevis, I saw it on television when the fire department had a load of it in back of the truck going at the airport for destruction. That's when I first saw this stuff. I've never known of it. I've heard it from the time I was very small. When I say very small, I was working at a hotel. And because of my footwork, a lady walked up to me and asked me, where you get the stuff? I asked her, what do you mean? She said, marijuana. For me, I'm afraid of the police like a monkey is afraid of a gun. So I went to my supervisor and said, that lady over there asked me for marijuana. So one of the fellows from Antigua said, show me the lady. I showed him. That was the end of the conversation between, because like I said, I never knew of it. And they always reminded me that there was a tree growing right at the entrance to the Buccaneer Hotel. And on my way from work I was always tuned into WIVV. I don't know if you people could remember that gospel station with Dr. J. Vernon McGee and a few other WIVV coming out of Puerto Rico. Vieques was coming out of Vieques. So I had no time or any interest in even looking at the plant that was growing it. My co-workers always reminded me, man, this tree's right down here at the entrance. I never knew of it. It's when I came back here, I saw it on television. Never smoked it, have no interest in it. So let me make the record clear.
Mr. Stanley, 75% of the people who are pressing for legalization of marijuana are not where you are about the economic gains, because they know better than that. What they are asking for is, as the Prime Minister says, they're around, say, free up the weed, man.
Recreation.
Free up is recreation. All the young people want to smoke it, and that is the real problem. All young people are involved in, instead of reading books, especially our young men, instead of reading books and trying to get on in school and get on in the world, they are at a very early age, at the primary level, I'm told by some teachers, at a primary level they get somehow involved in smoking marijuana. And they never seem to get over it, and they end up committing serious offenses. And when you free up this thing, as the Prime Minister said, all you're going to have is these kids are going to be able to come to school with their marijuana in their pocket, because it's going to be all around them, and they're going to smoke, as the fellow said who rang in a while ago, they're just going to puff in your face. You know, I mean, we have enough problems in our country to get involved in another set of problems by legalizing marijuana. Everybody's going, once you free it up, as the Prime Minister said, I mean, you can't stop it. And we have a crisis here. We have a crisis in criminality, in people who don't respect the law, in people who are prepared to do anything to survive, and they don't want to work. And that is the real problem we have in this country. People from Guyana, people from Santo Domingo, people from all over come here and are able to make a living. And yet our young people are not prepared to get involved in the same agriculture. I mean, the agricultural department has done everything to encourage young people to get involved. I mean, there is money to be made in watermelon and all that sort of stuff. There's money to be made in all sorts of other fruits and ground provision and so forth. But you have to wait until the Dominica boat comes in to get those things. Why can't we use the soil that you says is so wonderful for marijuana to grow our ground provisions and our fruits and so forth, instead of thinking about marijuana? Marijuana, what kind of quantity could we produce to attract these big pharmaceutical society? Mr. Stanley, this is a pipe dream.
Mr. Stanley, I want to take us back a bit to the heyday, so to speak, of sugar. From Guyana in the south all the way up to Jamaica in the north. All of these territories produce sugar for, quote unquote, the mother colony of England. And for England alone, Mr. Stanley, it was not enough. They devised a system whereby all of these territories were allowed to produce a certain amount, the quota system. Now, your idea, your concept of speaking to Bayer and Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer, my question is, if these pharmaceuticals company were to say to the Caribbean or OECS, from Guyana in the south to Jamaica in the north, that we need, let's say, 100 million tons annually I'm just calling a figure, to make the production of this viable. Not one territory in the first case would be able to produce that. That's the first thing. Will we be able to resort back to a quota system to make sure that we meet the demand? Because I am seeing, based on what you are suggesting, and based on how you would have packaged your argument, that if all of these territories were to get involved and they were to do it on a individual competitive basis, that somebody's going to fall short and somebody's going to lose out. The only safety net that I see, quote unquote, if they were to consider this approach, they would have to resort probably to a quota system. They would have to say to St. Kitts and Nevis that, look, your quota would be 20 tons. Antigua and Barbuda, your quota would be 25 tons. Down the line, down the island. And if we are able to meet the quota for what these pharmaceuticals companies suggesting of 100 plus tons, I am seeing that one of the only way in which we can make a success of this, that there would have to be a quota system, because if we go on this with a competitive market approach, it's going to be a dog-eat-dog scenario.
Well, I believe that based on the information that is reaching my desk, there are scientists who might be able to identify the strains, the particular strains that will bring about the most effective product. Good evening, you're on Let's Talk. Good evening, you're on Let's Talk.
Oh, shit.
Good evening, you're on Let's Talk. Good evening, you're on Let's Talk.
Gentlemen, good evening again.
Good evening.
Mr. Stanley and Mr. Brannan, Mr.
Yes, good evening again.
I'm now getting the meat of your conversation because I'm now listening longer. But I want you guys to know that there's never going to be a time that Nevis will be able to produce marijuana on the scale of exportation. There would be a time when if they ever legalize or decriminalize marijuana, then we'll be able to sustain ourselves for recreational use and for health benefit for those of us who are using it for our health. But we first have to deal with food security. If we cannot feed ourselves as a nation with food security, how can we feed ourselves with marijuana? If we are going to use marijuana for health benefit and for recreational use, we have to have food in our system to sustain marijuana. Marijuana is not just about puffing and blowing in other people's face. Marijuana is very in-depth and very deep for health purposes. Note I said earlier, there's more people in the Federation that are using marijuana than those who are smoking it. And there are very many people that are smoking it. Those are the minorities. Because there are a lot of people who are using it for different health reasons. And most people in the island who are on medication, if they do their research properly, they'll find out. Depends on the type of medication and their sicknesses, they have to be using a content of marijuana. Because once you're on cancer and you're using vitamin B17, then they will also tell you about marijuana and other sicknesses. But if you're talking about to produce on a scale to export, listen, it's not going to happen in an Nevis. We don't have enough land space, and we don't have the man force and everything to produce to compete with all these other big islands. But we do think seriously about decriminalizing it for young people and for records and for putting people in jail for a spliff and things like that and giving them a record and make them can't travel to go to overseas for educational purposes or for medical reasons because they have a record. So let's get it real. You understand my contribution, sir?
Yeah.
Definitely. I appreciate you guys. One love.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, Mr. Brand, you were commenting. Well, I'm just saying that people see things the way they see things, and they do offer their opinion. I'm saying that based on information that I've received, it is done in a greenhouse, not just in the open.
Yeah, we are
The whole
high-tech farming.
High-tech.
Yeah, high-tech serious farming.
Serious
to
multiply the production of the end product. And if people are using it, as I was told, for medical reasons, people who pay big money for the end product, especially when it is proven that the results are positive, because there are people whose lives have been prolonged by the end product based on its quality. So in that regard, looking at it from the standpoint of the quantity and making a comparison about a small size, then somebody might have an argument, but at the same time, if nobody is there to counter that argument with factual information, then that argument would stand. There's a former senator of the U.S. Virgin Islands Senate, originally from St. Kitts, Springer, I think that's his name. He's been pushing for it for the longest while, and I understood, I heard it in the news, that Governor Mapp, before he emitted office, signed the bill into law for the production of marijuana in the Virgin Islands. Now, I cannot tell you how they would go about legalizing the product. I can't tell you how former Senator Springer had it, but he has been pushing for many years for the legalization of that product for medical reasons. As the Senate closed, I understood the bill passed and signed into law. So here is another neighbor who now sees the possibility, Caribbean neighbor. So we cannot operate without factual information, good research, and ultimately the product that is brought to the fore. Because I understood people in the nation, there are doctors in the nation that are prescribing it to their patients, and they have had good results. So if this is the case,
against the law, you're saying, Mr. Stanley?
So I heard. I mean,
it's against the law.
So I heard.
To have
so I heard. But at the same time.
And you were telling me there are certain doctors who are prescribing it.
So I heard. But if the research is done.
Mr. Stanley.
No, but I'll be honest. You remember the fellow who was employed to euthanasia in Asia, and he justified the killing of people simply because he took them out of their misery. Are you understanding? So if the application of the herb relieves somebody's pain and prolongs their lives, then there might be some cutting of slack.
What I'm saying is,
the law.
Apart from the law here, when a doctor prescribes medicine, that prescription goes to a drugstore. Who does that prescription go to?
You're asking me a question that I can't answer. I'm just saying to you.
But you're making a statement which is a serious allegation against doctors in this country. I mean,
you want to ratchet up now.
No, but I mean,
but I mean, I'm saying to you, here we are.
I understand that certain people, will suggest to a patient, well, look, you should take that also. But is that prescription?
Or a suggestion
from a doctor? People make a suggestion.
Well, how you want to term it? The terminology is not the real case. the application and the use of it, and sometimes the end justifies the means. Meaning, if you know that this has relieved your pain and suffering, and it has prolonged your life and make your life more comfortable, and you use it in the privacy of your home, the privacy of the recommendation. You are a lawyer, but you know that there are people who do things, and I mean.
No, but for you to make a statement like that the doctors were prescribing marijuana.
I said, so I heard. So I heard.
All right, okay, all right.
I'm saying
you pass.
So I heard. I mean,
you pass.
I am not a doctor. I don't prescribe. I mean, I use herb every morning during the day.
Which one do you have?
Cinnamon.
Well, it's just as well. Just as well you qualify it.
Yes, cinnamon. Yeah, I'm telling you, cinnamon, which we call, cinnamon, which we call cinnamon, sage, stinging nettle.
You call all those herbs?
They are.
Yeah.
You use donkey rub down too?
I don't know what donkey rub down is, but jumpy thicky time, you go on and on, evening primrose, and I'll tell you, they work. Good evening, you're on Let's Talk.
The gentleman who was pushing the marijuana in St. Croix is Positive Nelson, a senator. Not Springer, Positive Nelson.
Nelson, okay, good. Thank you for the correction. Thank you for the correction.
All right, now.
Thanks again for the correction. He's my neighbor, as a matter of fact.
This lady?
No.
Oh. In St. Thomas?
Springer. She said Nelson.
In St. Croix?
Yeah.
She said Positive Nelson.
Positive Nelson. Good. He's my neighbor. So I'm just saying to you, with
I want you to
with those herbs, and Nevis is a Garden of Eden, and there are paracetamol. You go on my step right now, you see all of them right there. Evening primrose, paracetamol, cinnamon.
There's a herb called paracetamol.
Mr. Stanley,
paracetamol, yes.
The fact is that practically all medicines
come from the earth.
Come from plants,
yeah.
from plants,
right.
and so on and so forth.
So I'm saying to you that as I already poured my hot water into my cup, I would have drunk that, and a half jar of ice is in my freezer. I sip another, and I use it for iced tea during the day. So I'm telling you, and it works.
Which one is that during the day?
What I've just mentioned, the mix.
The mix.
3. Good evening, you're on Let's Talk.
Yes, a pleasant good evening.
A pleasant good evening to you.
Yes, to you. We down here, we look up Christine like we follow fashion a lot. Because somebody else dealing with the marijuana, I don't think that we have to go there.
Right.
We have to think for ourselves and stop follow people and listen to what people say and do and we own. We don't need the marijuana.
Okay.
We have a lot of them walking like zombies.
Because they misuse it. And they shouldn't be using it.
Right. So we don't need that. We need to think for ourselves and forget about what people do and what people have. Have a pleasant night.
Thanks for your contribution. We shouldn't follow people. But we go to school, that's following others. We wear clothing no longer as bushmen. We subscribe to certain norms, but at the same time, that's some good advice the lady just gave us. We don't have to follow other people. But I'm saying those who abuse it or misuse it, that's a different matter. And I just believe that if it is in a controlled setting, and we are able to derive from it knowledge, economic benefits, health resolution, then let's explore it.
I think people ought to know that it is still a federal crime to possess marijuana in the United
In-
States.
yes, it is.
absolutely.
It
It's
is.
still federal.
Yes, it
And
is.
I am almost certain that sooner or later, especially if Trump is allowed to continue in office for another, however years, you're going to have them coming down on these countries that are legalizing marijuana. I'm telling you.
Well, we understand how the big boys think, and unfortunately, there are people in the United States who openly on television now telling you that they've got a license and they've cut them some slack. Federally, the federal government doesn't really come after them simply because there's a buffer, and the federal government realizes, hey, look, if the state government would have given them the legalization or the latitude to do it, well, we will look the other way. We will look the other way. But if we are called in primarily on a particular case and we find you, we catch you, we're going to prosecute you.
Yeah, it's still classified as a dangerous
Right.
drug.
It's still illegal. It's not legalized, and therefore you're breaking the law. But I'm saying to you, based on the information reaching my, and I hope that the Honorable Spencer Brand would have the courage to, in fact, steer the cabinet and also influence the federal government to have a conversation with those companies that I've said, that I've mentioned. And
Kaiser. I don't think they would even entertain. The pharmaceutical industry is one of the most aggressive industry in the world.
I am telling you that they're already investing in it. So I'm not saying all of them, don't misunderstand me. But those who see the positive impact on their bottom line, they've already gotten their foot in the door. So I think we have exhausted
that subject.
this subject. We hope that we would be able to get the people who are up there with the right aptitude and right approach from a scientific point of view to go forward and do what they have to do, because sure, we have people here who benefit, so I was told, from the application. And if they benefit and they feel better, more power to them. I mean, fortunately, I don't have any pains, and I don't, like I said, I've never used it. I have no idea what it's like. But people do bring information because they know that we have.
Well, I've never really been close enough. I smell it when people smoke it around.
Yeah,
but I've never really seen it.
It's terrible.
I've seen it from a distance, and I've seen the plants and all of that sort of thing. But Mr. Stanley, I want to go back to that business of Brexit, and you said you didn't know where that came from, but I can tell you that ever since the 1970s, before Britain entered the EU, it took a little while before Britain entered the EU.
Yes, I could remember that.
And in fact, they had a referendum, and it barely passed,
succeeded, yeah.
so that England was able to enter the EU. But since that time, you've always had what they're known as
1 foot in and 1 foot out.
Yeah. You've always known that the Conservative had a sizable portion of their members as Eurosceptics. That is, that they are not happy in being in the European Union. Those people always felt that Britain was a special country, and that Britain does not need. Britain stood up in the war and so forth and led the charge against Germany and all of that sort of thing. And Britain didn't need Europe. And in fact, Britain was the only country in the EU that maintained its currency. So they still have the sterling, the pound, and all that. All the others, of course, have the euro and so forth. And so it was only a matter of time before this matter developed as it has. And it has come about because of emigration. You know, Britain was beginning to worry about all these people that have been allowed to enter the United Kingdom, people from Poland, people from all over Europe, and of course other people from all over the world were pouring into Britain. And that, I think, is the real reason why you have Brexit today. And of course, it's the same reason why you have the situation in the United Kingdom. Immigration, because Trump doesn't want these brown-skinned people from
in the United States.
In the United States entering United Kingdom, United States, and as a result, he has decided that this business of the wall is a vote getter, and he started off with that. His first speech coming down the escalator, you remember, he was saying about Mexicans are rapists and this and that and so forth. So the advent of immigration in this century is what is really causing the instability throughout the world.
Yes, good evening, you're on Let's Talk.
Yes, Stanley.
Yes, Admiral.
Another turn, right? Now, in the 70s and the 80s, all right, there was a problem with the black people in the United States who was using marijuana, crack,
cocaine,
and all of those type of drugs. And they were locked up, they were placed in jail and abused and treated badly, whatever. Now, they have this, the whites now are affected by the opioid, right? And you know what you tell them to do? Yeah, go to the police station, the white people, go to the police station and let them know you have a problem, and they will send you, someplace to help you take care of it. The black people, they were locked up and placed in jail, beaten up and treated badly. Now, the blacks in America have grown up, they were taught, and they have, most of them have gotten over it. They're living their life. They are in good jobs and everything else and, trying to make a good living. So all of a sudden now, look, this country, you got to think deep to see what's going on with this country. And the islands also, because it's a trickle-down effect. So now they have cleaned up themselves. Oh, you come along, let's legalize marijuana. Right? They get the marijuana, they get high, then they want to get higher, they go on to cocaine, they leave the cocaine and they go on to crack, and we get right back where we were in the 70s and the 80s. People just need to look out. It's not about, looking after us. Their people got caught up, we got out, and they want to push us right back where we were then. I mean, when I say I was never involved in anything, I just hear about marijuana, and I see people with marijuana. So, I'm just letting you know, some people can't get high enough, so they try this, and then they go to try something.
It's a gateway drug.
And then again, somebody called on the other day about somebody stealing their goats or something, and, they want to report them to the... When people plant their marijuana, if you legalize marijuana, people plant their crops and whatnot, and people start stealing them. You know what the killing rate is going to be down there? Okay?
I agree with you, Mr. Sadio.
All right, just think about it. You go out and plant, and when you go back, somebody got your stuff, and you wait out for them to come back, and then you see what's going on.
Well, people got to leave what doesn't belong to them alone.
But they don't.
They don't.
They have to.
No, it don't happen like that.
All right.
I wish they did. But people have to think deeply about this thing, what went on. I mean, I'm talking from not my own experience, but seeing what went on here and where they're heading again. Right? It's just going to be a bunch of zombies walking around.
But we're from the old school, and we have no pleasure in that stuff.
Right. Because they can't think. So then they will have you where you are, and you do what they want, because then you'd be dependent on that substance. All right, guys.
Yes, thanks again for your contribution. Well, based on what we know, people have to begin to understand that they don't need it. You could function without it. So why use it? I mean, I don't see what pleasure people get out of a cigarette. And I could see people, they light up they put one out and they put another one in. What pleasure do they get from cigarette? And some of them smoke even before they eat. They buy cigarettes before they buy food. Of course, I guess they get hooked. What are you hooked on, Ted? What are you hooked on? What are you
I'm not hooked on anything.
Oh, good. They're from the old school. They're from the old school. We don't get hooked. You understand me? Oh, boy, but...
Yeah, this will be an ongoing topic.
It's going to be a very important topic. I mean, the Prime Minister said in his recent press conference that he has received the report and that the Cabinet will consider it. But the Prime Minister made a statement some time ago, which I hope he sticks to it. And so that if I understood what he said at the time, it doesn't look as if there's going to be any legalizing of the stuff in the near future. But, you know, he commissioned it, and I'm sure he has to consider it. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Well, I've just bring this to the fore. I was listening to a clip this morning where the Supreme Court of the United States has supported Trump for gender. The
I
ban,
think that's
the ban that
outrageous.
he applied for, and he has been successful in getting the ban put in effect.
I think that was outrageous.
I think it's just a stupid move. I mean, Bill Clinton said in the past, or I would say that might have been a statement, a cliche. Don't ask, don't tell. I don't want to know what your sexual orientation is, but you serve voluntarily, and now they're going to tell you can't serve simply because Trump.
And Obama put it that you don't even have to ask the question. You don't.
Right, there was a statement, a bold statement. Don't ask. Don't
Yeah, that was a Clinton thing, but Obama came in and allowed them without asking questions.
Right. And in my view, people in Israel, they serve voluntarily. I mean, do they?
Oh,
But from
everywhere else they
from a
serve.
patriotic point of view, I mean, if Sinky didn't even know engage in a war, I'll go. I love my country.
Yeah.
I mean, they may not take me because of where I've attained in terms of
So
numbers.
what these people are going to do now? Have to leave?
Well, they've got certain special provisions, but at the same time, most of them are not going to be able to serve simply because of this. I don't know where this crazy man came from. I'll be honest. But again, I believe in the Bible, and for whatever reason, the Bible must be fulfilled. And in that regard, you'll find people like him bringing down the United States. And they're talking about these 800,000 people. And millions.
Millions.
This thing is going to affect.
The trickle-down effect.
And how can some people adjust their thinking and their utterances to call a spade a spade? Because it's not going to only affect 800,000 people. It will ultimately, and based on the attitude of this crazy man, he doesn't want to budge, and it is very likely this thing would go on and on.
It's going to go on for quite a while.
Because he said it might take years.
I don't know, because the FBI Association is calling on them to apparently it's affecting some of their members.
Look, it's
There's a lot of
affecting
safety
everybody.
issues. Yeah, there's a lot of safety issues that is.
It's
popping up
affecting
here and there,
everybody.
and,
And how come he doesn't see it the way everybody else sees it? When I said I do not understand how we cannot come to the realization that this is bringing down the same country that he said he will make America great again. How come he doesn't see the reverse happening? There's a call. So I'm saying, people of the United States, if you can hear Webo, you can hear Honorable Spencer Brand, Ted Hobson, Dr. Patricia Bartlett, Conrad Nile Liebert, and yours truly. Let's see how fast we could get rid of this man, because he is affecting all of us. And in that regard, we say good night to you and thank you for listening and your participating. And listen tomorrow evening, beginning at 8, for the Honorable Mark A.G. Brantley.
And this program at 10 o'clock.
And also please listen tomorrow for the rebroadcast of tonight's episode. Thanks again for listening and have a pleasant night.
Good night. Good night.
Views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertisers.
It is now 10 o'clock.
With all the power from the tower, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, VON Radio, from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
What if we were